Kingman Airport Advisory Meeting, Monday, November 9th. I'd like a call to order and a roll call, please.
Dave M. Spoker.
Present.
Scott Brackett.
Present.
Charles Burrows.
Here.
Mike Finnegan. He did let us know that he was not going to be appearing today. Attending, Tim Gurley.
Here.
John Stutzman.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Okay. Next is a Pledge of Allegiance. And imagine your flags. There we go. Thank you, Joe. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1 on the agenda is approval of past minutes. Has everyone read the minutes or have any comments?
If there's no comments, I move we accept the minutes as written.
And I will second that.
Dave and John have first and seconded. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous approval of the minutes. Considerations of public comment. Item 2. Those wishing to address the Airport Advisory Commission need not request permission in advance. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or reschedule the matter for consideration and decision at a later time pursuant to ARS 38-431 et al. Is there any comments that we've had written in or anything? Janie, have you had any?
Chairman Brackett, we did not receive any comments.
Okay, let it be known that we received no comments for public comments on item 2. Reports. We're going to get the business park staff to report on what went on there.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bennett Bratley is not able to attend this meeting today, but he did prepare a report for me to read to all of you. Starting first with the Economic Development and Airport Facebook pages. Both pages have been up and running for over a month now. We're getting a lot of positive feedback from both of them. The Choose Kingman Economic Development website had 871 users and was up 17% from the previous month. Airport website had over 1,100 users and was up 14% from September. On the 1,800 acre land election to sell surplus land, the ballot question number 1 regarding the sale of the surplus land was overwhelmingly approved by the voters, with over 70% of those voting supporting the future sale of the land. Last week, the Arizona Department of Transportation, they're in the process of conducting a statewide Arizona airports impact study. And the city of Kingman is participating in that study at no cost to the city. Staff met last week with a representative from Kimley Horn, the firm hired by ADOT to administer the study. And introductions were made to all the businesses that have an aviation component, both on the industrial park side and on the air side. The continual airport and industrial park entryway cleanup. The status on that is right now staff is reaching out to vendors to get bids for a monthly proposal for bi-weekly cleanup of weeds, weed removal from the entryway of the airport and industrial park all the way up to Flight Line Drive. For rail, the rail update, August 2020, there were 827 cars stored and 181 cars switched. In September, we had 539 cars stored and 149 cars switched. Our Project Colt will be operational on a 10-car per property at the industrial park commencing the second quarter of 2021. And we anticipate an estimate of 60 to 10 cars annually from this company. Shelves West will also start receiving plastic pellet shipments this November, December, and we estimate an additional 100 cars annually from them. Two project updates. Project Interstate, they've completed the first draft of a site plan for a property located on city land out here. The plans are to build a 16,200 square foot manufacturing shop and a 5,400 square foot material storage building attached to the manufacturing space. The building will be pre-engineered metal, and this is over 16,200 square feet larger than their original proposed project. Lastly, the land sale update. This week, Project GBG has indicated that they will be putting a hold on all Arizona projects, and that includes Kingman Industrial Project for the next 6 months. And that's what I have for the industrial park update.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah, Lisa, I've noticed that there's an additional locomotive here, and it brought up a thought. Does anyone pay for the locomotives that are stored here? Are those considered as a car or not?
I would have to check with Bennett on that and get back to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question, Lisa.
Mhm.
CBG, is that big, or is that big industrial, or the other half of the big industrial, whatever it was? Is that who we're talking about with all the projects on hold in Arizona?
No, this was, to my understanding, this was a separate submittal.
Okay. Okay. Any more questions, anyone? Okay, item B, airport staff report. Joe, you're up.
Okay, the moment you've all been waiting for. I've been here, this is starting my 4th week here back at the airport. And so a lot of my time, both up to this point and even continuing, is kind of getting my arms around what's going on, the projects that are currently underway, the projects that we have scheduled, various communications, trying to finish up some agreements with some of the airport users that are actually currently on the field, and a variety of things like that. So the first thing I'll report on is the runway project. We're pretty happy with the runway project. They had completed the bulk of the work, probably 98% of the project was completed as of Friday afternoon. About 2 o'clock, we were able to open the runway 321. And so that's been milled and overlaid and restriped with temporary markings. And when I say temporary markings, they're the minimum required markings at this point, and a lighter coat than we'll apply when we get to the permanent markings. We're going to let the asphalt cure, of course, and all the oils leach out of it over the next month. And sometime around the 2nd week, I believe it is, of December, the contractor will be back to install the permanent markings and to place some new sign facings on some of our lighted signs out there, as well as make a couple of repairs to electrical, a couple of lights. There were 4 lights that were damaged, and they're pretty spread out around the field. They're not a significant impact, so they'll repair those when they come back on the next phase. That will require a closure of runway 321 pretty much for an entire day. We'll start first thing in the morning. And then we'll also have to close the crosswind, runway 1735, for a short time while we complete the striping at the runway intersection. So we'll have a full closure of both runways for probably a couple of hours, something like that, 2 to 3 hours, and then the rest of the time will just be 321 closed. It probably won't take a full day, but we're going to schedule probably a 9 or 10 hour closure just in case. So that's a runway project. It came out very well. Once again, they were ahead of schedule. The quality of the work was very good. We're very pleased with the asphalt that's been placed out there. One of the next projects that's coming up is actually currently underway and coming up, Taxiway B. That's the reconstruction of Taxiway B from where it joins Taxiway Delta. And that is about 60% design. That's been ongoing through a grant from ADOT. By the way, the runway grant was through the FAA, the Airport Improvement Program. So Taxiway B is about at 60% design. We're awaiting any time now the execution or the award of a second ADOT grant to complete the design and start the first phase of construction. It's about $1.2 million, and it is scheduled to be heard and approved at the State Transportation Board anytime. If not, I believe it's going to be done this month, but I have to double check on that. But it will be soon, and so we should be able to complete design and begin construction of Taxiway Bravo sometime later, well, sometime in 2021. I won't say later this year, later this fiscal year, but sometime in 2021 after the 1st of January. So that's the next grant and the next project that we've got coming up. Also, we have a grant through the CARES Act for the fence project. If you're familiar, Steve had developed a project and was able to receive a grant through the CARES Act to relocate the fence on the east side of the airport further out. We've already placed some millings out in that area. Public Works did that for us some time ago. So the idea is that we can actually relocate the fence further back from where it is right now and have additional area to store aircraft, which is becoming more and more aircraft are being stored here. I think we've come up since June something like 30 to 40 airplanes, maybe even more than that. I'd have to go back and double check. But that grant has been issued and executed, and so we've got $69,000 through the CARES Act that we'll use for that fence relocation, which may or may not be completely enough, but we've also found some money within the airport budget that I can talk about a little bit later where we may be able to add to that, and should be trying to get that going within the next couple of months. Like I said, the grant's executed. It's a matter of finding contractor and getting the work started. So that's the fence project. One of the main things that I've been doing since I've been here is following up with the FAA and ADOT on where we are on the various grant projects, various grant processes, and making sure that we're current on everything with regards to the paperwork and communication that we need to do there. Maintenance activities, we've been trying to get some more sweeping done. The sweepers have been out quite a bit lately. We're also, I realize that we've been waiting an inordinate amount of time to get some chains replaced on our open tie downs. And I believe that we should be able to get that started pretty soon. I know that there was some painting done recently on the open tie downs in the vicinity of, well, gosh, I can't remember exactly where, but we repainted several open tie downs recently. We'll continue to do that. We're also repairing some erosion that I discovered out along the edge of Taxiway Charlie. And also I'm going to get some pricing on a crack seal coat and repaint of Taxiway Charlie. It's some of the newest airfield pavement that we have out there. And as I inspected it, I noticed there were some cracks. They're normal cracks, longitudinal cracks that just develop as where they place the asphalt and the joints kind of open up. And they get bigger and smaller with hot and cold temperatures. But anyway, we want to get those cracks sealed, and we want to get the surface treatment on that because we're losing some of the fines out of there. And it's just an area that, you know, $1 worth of maintenance today saves you $5 worth of maintenance later or reconstruction. So I'm going to try to get some work done down there. There is some money in the budget for pavement maintenance. And so I've asked a couple of contractors to come out and give us some pricing on that. Let's see. Also, herbicide, we're continuing to spray out there. We've been blessed with a dry year, which is helpful with regards to weed and vegetation growth in the airfield areas and the runway and taxiway environment. I want to thank the staff here. I was pleasantly surprised when I got back here to see how well the infield areas are being taken care of with regards to mowing as well as herbicide application. We just received a fairly large order of chemical, and so staff's been out spraying today. And landscaping, we're trying to make some improvements to the landscaping. As you know, one of the things that's been discussed projects is the backside of the airfield side of the terminal. And I know that, that fence has been removed, and we're trying to get a final engineering report on drainage in that area so that we can continue with completing the landscape of that as well as the retention basin next to it. So that's a project that we're looking forward to completing because I think it'll really make a difference for the appearance from the airfield side of the terminal. So that's kind of the maintenance activities that we've been up to. Draw site, I've checked on where we are. I still need to check with Pedgman from Haley and Aldrich, who's the project manager that we're working with on that. When I left here 2 years ago, we were just starting the project of boring the draw site in a large grid area, and that was to determine as precisely as possible how much waste material is out there, dross material is out there, and what's the makeup and composition of it. Once they completed that, they actually did a waste management study or a waste disposal study with those quantities and the composition of the material to determine how much needs to be relocated and disposed of, and actually it's going to go to a storage site, and then what it is. That was completed. They've also got to the point where they have decided on where the material is going to be stored or placed or whatever you want to call it. And so that is in the hands of the Department of Justice right now, awaiting their final approval of that waste management, that waste disposal part of it. As soon as they agree on that, then we can start the remediation, complete the remediation plan, design it, if you will. That's how much you're going to dig out, where it's going to dig out, what the limits are. And then that plan will be approved by the DOJ. I guess the short answer, if you listen to me rambling on about the draw side, is that it is continuing to move. It's a very slow process. And we're working on trying to get some approval to, one of the things I talked to one of the airport tenants about was, can we establish the best path through there? And that, a clear path that we can use and actually would minimize the use of other areas. And they actually, the project team, the Department of Justice actually agrees to that. The more we can limit the use of the area, the better they like it. So developing sort of an established clear path through there and then marking it in some way to, identify where we're going to keep that clear path that allows us also then to keep the area swept a little better because we're concentrating on one specific area as opposed to everywhere. So we're working on that process. I just started working on it, but it's something that we're trying to identify. I was actually hopeful that we could potentially even do a pass of seal coat through there to kind of hold some of that surface in place and reduce the amount of FOD that's created. But I don't know that we're going to have that, the ability to do that. I know that DOJ, even though it's not disturbing the subsurface, that may be a little bit more than they're willing. But I am pressing for that at least we could mark it with a paint marking of some kind, whether we put just one center line or maybe a center line and edge lines and use a completely non-standard marking. In other words, it wouldn't be yellow, it wouldn't be white, it wouldn't look like anything else you find on an airport. And that way it would clearly define, okay, that's what this path is for. So we're working on the draw site. It's a long process. I wish I had better news, but it's something that I am working on a little bit. It's, I don't mean it's a lower priority to me, only because there's so many other higher priorities right now. But I am able to put a little bit of time into it in capacity. So just wanted to give you an update on the draw site that I know it so far. The county has been much more cooperative. I want to thank Bennett for his efforts in getting the county out here to really take on their role and responsibility to take care of the roads that are within the county right-of-way system that's in the industrial park. And so we're seeing a lot more cooperation than there'd been in the past, a lot more willingness to come out and do that. And I think that's a direct result of Bennett's efforts trying to get them out here to really take care of the roads. I also want to thank the Public Works Department, who has come out. In some cases, the county, I'm sure that you guys know about this, the commission does, but in some cases, the county is not willing to accept a road into the system unless it's at a certain level of condition. And so, we had Public Works come out and do some chip sealing on some of these roads that then allowed the county to say, okay, we'll take on that maintenance responsibility. They're also helpful. The county's been very helpful with some of our drainage issues. So it's a great success story, I guess, that I'm pleasantly surprised to see since I've returned. Let's see, what's else? Maintenance, fence, grant status, taxiway, runway. A lot of what I've been doing since I've been here is just talking to people. That's talking to some of you. That's certainly talking to the FAA and establishing, okay, I am the interim airport manager for some period of time until further notice. And so I've done that with ADOT and with the FAA and gotten that done similar to what we did when I came here the first time. We had to sort of establish all of those parameters. But just been doing a lot of communication with various folks around. I will tell you that we've got a new, so at ADOT in the aeronautics team for our grant management, we've had one individual for quite some time. They just changed that to a new person. And so we need to sort of bring this new individual, her name is Sonia, up to speed. And we'll miss Margie Serta, who's been the representative for the airport here for quite some time. She's done an excellent job, and we will want to thank her for her assistance to the airport. All the other regulator folks remain the same. And then finally, I will share with you where we are on the manager selection process, because I'm sure you guys don't want me to be around here too much longer. But we have, I am thinking that I'll be here for 2 to 4 months, whatever time it takes to establish a new airport manager here. So I've met with HR. We're taking a look at the job description and parameters for the airport general manager position, see if any changes are needed. And then the intention is that we'll put that out to recruitment. We'll put that out through the regular city process on their website and the other websites that they participate in. And I don't know if they use Indeed or some of the other services that are out there, but it'll go out through that route. We'll also publish that through the Arizona Airports Association website and listservs, as well as the Southwest chapter of the American Association of Airport Executives. Both of those organizations are members, I'm a member of, and so we should be able to, we can have that done at essentially no cost to the airport, and it also gets to the right people. So we're pretty excited. And I was somewhat, I was somewhat concerned because having been retired again for the last 9 or 10 months, and not looking for work prior to that, I didn't really know and don't really know what the job market is out there, whether there's a lot of people looking for work in my industry, whether nobody's looking for work, whether people are hiring and getting applicants, not getting applicants. But I was heartened today to talk to another airport that recently put out a request for an airport manager position. And they did exactly what we're doing through the regular city process, as well as through ASA and SWAI. They said they received over 110 applications. So that heartens me to know that we're going to get, I believe, good response. I don't know that we'll get 100 applications, but it tells me that at least people are out there and looking and interested. And there's always people within the industry who are, moving up through the chain of command, similar to what I've done over the years. So that's kind of where we are. I'm hopeful that we can open that recruitment sometime in December, maybe by the second week. I'm always leery about putting anything out at around the holidays, not just because it's the holidays, also, but just people get distracted and have other things going on and family priorities. So, but we are going to try to get that out early enough in the month of December that we can get some applicants back in. And then one of the other things I'm working on, that's kind of where we are on the manager selection, but one of the other things I'm working on as the city manager, Mr. Fogan, had had asked me to do is look at how we do things on the airport, similar to what I did in the past, determine if there's some alternatives and some best practices that we can convert to, and then also look at the reporting relationship of the airport division, where we're reporting now currently to economic development. Is there a more common practice? Is there a better alternative? Those are some of the things I'm working on. So we've started some research. Lisa is helping me do some research of other airports around the state and how they sort of do things. And then I'll put together some recommendations for Mr. Foggin to consider. So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, that's my airport report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Scott, I have some questions.
Have at it.
Hey, Joe, good to see you. I'm sorry I haven't been in to see you in person, but I'll get there eventually. A few questions regarding the runway project. It's wonderful that they got it done ahead of schedule. My question is about the gate loop that appears to have ceased working, where they were driving the big trucks in and out. Are they taking any responsibility for that?
You know, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Burrows, the way that it failed essentially is the loop wire just kind of came out of the ground. It didn't appear like it had been snagged or pulled, and so I didn't hold them accountable for it. We've had similar failures without having the truck traffic on it. So the bottom line is that no, they're not going to fix it. I really don't think it was their fault. And I believe it was repaired today. Actually, I got an email earlier from Paul, one of our staff members, who had fixed the limit switches that were kind of blown out over the weekend, as well as that loop. So I think both of them are repaired. But the short answer to your question, Commissioner, is no, we did not. And I really don't think it was their fault. Yep.
Okay. If I could,
yeah.
Okay, if I could put it into another term, if it would have been fully up to standard, it probably wouldn't have gone out while they were driving over it.
I would say that's an accurate statement, Commissioner. And we've actually got an idea to upgrade it, and that is actually to put in a wider saw cut where the loop detectors go, put the loop wire in a PVC conduit, and then place that whole conduit ring, if you will, down in there. It's going to take us some time to ultimately do that because we're going to have to saw cut the area bigger, chip it out, etc. But that's kind of what we want to do. And yes, if it were in better shape, it probably wouldn't have this problem, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. And on your report about Taxiway Bravo, you said it's about 60% way through design, and we have a grant for somewhere in the neighborhood. We're requesting a grant for 1.2 million. What will that 1.2 cover? Design and starting the project, or design and the project?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Burrows, that will cover the completion of the design, which is, like I said, it's 25 to 30%, not a big part of it. And then it will cover the first phase of construction, which is approximately 1/2 of the taxiway. So it'll go out about to where the hangars are out there, those two box hangars, roughly speaking, right, kind of in that neighborhood. But that's what it'll do, is cover the first phase of construction, and then we should, in next year's state grant cycle, receive the funding for the additional phase 2 of that. So over 2 years, we should essentially get that taxiway completed all the way out kind of to the end, pretty much out to where Alpha Zulu is, kind of a beam where Alpha Zulu is out at the end of the field.
Okay. Thank you. Also, at last month's meeting, I brought up a maintenance issue, and it may have fallen through the cracks, so I just wanted to alert you about it. The rubber strip above the bifold doors on T hangers, I think it's row C, Charlie, that has deteriorated and birds are getting in it and whatnot. I don't know if you got that word, but if not, if you could take a look at it and see what we need to do.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Burrows, I'd be happy to look at that. I did see that in last month's minutes, And so I will have that looked into.
Okay, and finally, the last question regarding the new general manager selection. Will this commission have an opportunity to look at the job announcement and the parameters for the job before it goes out?
I would certainly be willing to share that job announcement with you. You know, I don't see a reason that we couldn't share that.
All right, appreciate that. I don't think we'd have to wait for a meeting. If we could just look at it and give you some input before it goes out, it might be something you could consider.
Absolutely.
All right, Joe, thank you. Thanks. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's great to be back. I actually have thoroughly enjoyed my last few weeks here and realized how much I missed both the airport and the community.
It's the snow, Joe. It's the snow.
That must be it.
Yeah.
So when I was driving in last night at about 5 o'clock, it was like I'm in the middle of this sleet storm on I-40 going, really? I'm wearing shorts and sandals in the truck, thank goodness. Anyway.
I had a question, if I may. Joe, you mentioned the work on the fence project, but the terminal area where the fence has been moved back. And I was curious, there was a lot of talk about a sign project outside the terminal building related to that, all the changes outside there. Have you heard anything about this welcome sign project moving forward?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Gerlach, I may have heard something. I'll have to look into it. It's not something that's immediately on my radar. So I'll just have to look into it. Perhaps Lisa, who's been helping a lot with the areas around the terminal, may have some additional information. Lisa, do you have anything?
I know that Gary Kellogg and Mr. Hayes were working on a design. I believe now there's a draft of a design in Gary's hands, so he could speak more to that.
Okay. Good enough. Thank you and welcome back.
Another thing, Commissioner Gerlach, is I'd like to, one of the things I'd like to do while I'm here, because I'd be quite frank with you, I think the terminal remodel, which was not complete when I left, and I don't think I even went in when I was here last year at the Airfest, but I thought it came out pretty well, you know, especially as far as upgrading the restroom areas, and the pilot lounge I think is quite nice. And, you know, just in general, the inside is looking pretty spiffy. And so I'd like to have the exterior of the building painted over the next couple of months, weather permitting, and do something that has a little bit of, provides a little bit of character. You know, I mean, you can just paint something Navajo white, which is pretty popular here in Arizona, but doing something with a body color and maybe some trim color that gives it a little bit of character. And, you know, that associated with the landscape project on the air side of the building and the new signage to help people understand what's going on, I think will go a long way towards helping the terminal area look pretty nice.
Yep, I agree with that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Joe, husband, this is Dave Amspoker. One of the things that we've been talking about for the Pilot's Lounge was a microwave and a small refrigerator. In past meetings, are those there now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, people are shaking their head yes.
Yes,
So,
they're there.
okay, that's good. I have not been in the lounge lately, so I don't know.
They're there.
And the other question I had, Tim brought up signage. I don't know, has a sign been put over by the fuel island directing pilots to where the pilot's lounge is and things like that? Or
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Amspoker, no, there has not been a new sign put out there. I thought when I was here, we actually put one of the other signs that kind of pointed people to the terminal. But I'll look into that. I do agree that we ought to help people people find their way to the terminal. I'll need to talk to the FBO because, as you know, that is their facility, if you will. But I would think that there shouldn't be any pushback to doing that. And I'd love to take credit for the microwave and refrigerator, but that actually, okay, I'll take credit for it anyway. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, that was Gary.
Gary and Steve take care of that. But I agree with you that we should do some kind of signage over there, helping people find their way to the terminal and the pilot lounge.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So,
Any other comments, or you got anything else, Joe, or?
negative, not on that item, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next item is oil recycle station, and I know you have something on that.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I've got a budget report that I'll provide for you.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly how Steve's been providing budget information to you, whether he's given you a handout or what. I also know that you'd asked for some additional information regarding the industrial park, segregating some of those revenues and expenses, and I've done that for you. But here's where we are on the budget overall, year to date, which is actually, I say year to date, but that's actually through October, the last full month. We've had revenues to the airport in total of $444,086, $444,086. We've had expenses overall year to date, $278,678. So our revenues are exceeding our revenues are exceeding our expenses by quite a bit, but also, as with any budget, we've got a number of big ticket items that I'll talk a little bit about in a minute that we haven't spent yet. So overall, as I said, revenues 444,086, expenses 278,068. Now, revenue airport versus industrial park broken out. So the revenue for the airport through October, the airport side of the budget is $343,942. That's $343,942. On the industrial park side, the revenue has been $90,162. That gets us to that 440, if you will, the two combined. Now, what I want to explain about the, generally speaking, the revenues for the industrial park are somewhere in the $30,000 range annually, or perhaps they're a little bit more than that. I'm sorry, that was. Let me just find my. I don't want to misspeak here. So the industrial park, yeah. So it's $6,500 to $7,500 a month. So if you extend that out, $7,000 for 12 months is $84,000. So roughly, let's say $85,000 a year. The reason I bring this to your attention is I just told you that the revenues were through the year, $90,000. The reason that is recently Patriot Rail was audited, and they found over the last several years they've been misreporting to us. And what it boiled down to is, used to be they would count, when they pay us, they would count the cars as they come into the airport area here. Well, they've been counting them at a transfer station close by before they came into the airport and failed to report that. So they discovered it internally. It wasn't anything that we did, but they had an internal audit, and they determined that they owed us $62,000 for several years. And so that's why our revenues are higher this year and this month and this year than they have been over the last couple of years. So this year we'll, instead of having about $85,000 for revenue from the industrial park, we'll have something like 80 plus 60, $145,000 to $150,000 in total year. So I just wanted to make that clear. But back to the original statement, airport $343,942, industrial park $90,162. On the expense side, the expenses from the airport side has been $257,103, and the expenses from the industrial park side through the October have been $21,575. And that's been pretty typical in that, you know, we spend anywhere that first year, I think we spent close to, I don't know, let me go back and check, but the first year, of course, we had more expenses, but they're running in the $30,000 to $40,000 range. One of the reasons that they're up a little bit more this year is because we've brought on some folks to help us with marketing and websites and things like that. And some of that has been charged on the industrial park side. In fact, most of that's been charged on the industrial side budget, even though the airport's website and social media has reaped the benefits of that. So that was the breakdown of airport versus industrial park on the revenue expense side. I'll also tell you that through September, we had dispensed 43,298 gallons of fuel had been reported to us as dispensed. So we didn't have the October numbers in when we pulled the data out of the system. So that's the story on the budget. The only last thing I would say, two last things I would say is one of them is, since I have been gone, I kind of came back and I did an audit, or I won't say an audit, but some research on monies that have been added to the airport fund through land sales since I've been over the last 2 years. And that's been $484,800 from sales of land in the industrial park, not including the rents and leases that we have out there, but just purely through sales. We've added almost $500,000 to the airport fund. The airport fund, when it was originally established as rolled over from KAA to the city of Kingman, it was segregated and restricted fund that was established purely for the airport. And that was in the $1 million range. I'm gonna research this, so next month I have some more detailed numbers. But that was around $1 million, and I believe it's well in excess of $2 million now. Not, you know, even including our revenues and expenses that we've taken out of it over the years. So the airport capital fund is continuing to grow. And I want to thank the folks who've been responsible for selling some of that property out there to Bennett primarily, because it's certainly helping the airport. And then out of that, I also checked the expenses that were against it. You know, sometimes we have to do some infrastructure improvements out there, put in utilities, clean things up. We've got one project going right now where we got to tear some buildings down. But of those sales that represented that $484,000, there was nearly no expenses associated with them. There was a small commission that was paid on one of the transactions that was approved by the FAA for us to actually do that. I think it was, you know, under $2,000. We're continuing to, you know, the industrial park is continuing to do what it is designed and intended to do, and that's to provide revenues to support the airport in our capital improvements, as well as to some degree through our operating, because the monies that we've made out there certainly are in excess of the monies that we spend out there. So that's it creates some extra surplus within the department's operating, the division's operating budget. So I just wanted to share that. That's my report on the budget, Mr. Chairman, commissioners. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, we were provided a copy last time or whatever, and I'd like to just come pick up at your leisure a revised copy. That's it.
Yeah, and what that's you're welcome to do that. I just need to know exactly what you normally got.
Okay, I'll bring it with me, and then we can go over it, make sure we're apples to apples.
Perfect. Yeah. Or I mean, and it's not just that. I mean, whatever you want and need, we'll provide. I don't want you to think that I'm trying to keep anything from you in any way.
Joe, this is Bill. Your year to date, from the numbers you've given us, I'm presuming this is January through October?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Burrows, negative. It is July 1st. City's fiscal year runs July 1st to June 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other items or comments? Now we can move on to the oil recycle station, item B. Okay,
all right.
Joe.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, so I realize that this has kind of been on there a while. Here's where we're at. The Public Works Department, and perhaps you guys know some of this already, but the Public Works Department does have a vendor that picks up their used oil at the Public Works Department. And my understanding is we were gonna create some kind of a barrel or receptacle here that we could dispose of the used oil in, and then just have their vendor come out and do that. We're still gonna do that, but there's some, there are some restrictions when you're talking about oil or other, there's stormwater restrictions. So some of the, at other airports that I've worked at all the other airports I've worked at, they've had these waste collection stations. Waste is maybe not the right word, but at various places by the various hangars or airports that have a maintenance bay, we put it there. There would be used oil collection. There'd also be a drum for solvents to dispense the solvents in, because one of the problems that you have is when you have used oil collection, don't have a solvent drum, is sometimes people put solvents in the used oil and then they become hot, and the company that comes out to take the used oil won't take it because it's now a special waste. So we'll have, what I've done is made contact with Goodyear, and I've asked Lisa to work on this. They're gonna send us some pictures of their facility. It's a little covered area. The oil collection drums, which also have to be in secondary containment, and they use a kind of a clamshell thing that holds 2 barrels, and then a solvent drum that will collect solvents in. Good signage that says, please don't put your solvents in the oil, as well as a basket that collects tires, aircraft tires. And so we're working on, I'm not saying we may not do something in the interim. What I mean by that is maybe we're able to build a small overhang on the end of one of the hangars, just using some plywood and shingles, and place a collection in there. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is put in a proper station that covers all the bases. And like I said, you have secondary containment, you have cover, you have good signage, the whole bit. So that's where we are. I just want to let you know that that's what we started working on for the permanent application. And then I'm going to find a way to do a temporary, screensaver came on, a temporary collection area as well. So I just kind of want to let you know there's a little delay, and I apologize for that, but I want to kind of give you an update on where we're going to go with this. From my perspective, and it's your decision, of course, Mr. Chairman, but would advise that we take this off as old business, and I will just provide you with an update in my airport report from time to time. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone, you got any questions? Okay. Yeah, I've been over to Glendale, and that's what they had. They had the wash rack, yep, and they had the oil right in the same area, and that was been a long time ago, but yeah, that's the way they did it too. So that's pretty common. Yeah, let's take it off and just put it as an update, and we'll see what we can do that way.
And as soon as I get some pictures from Goodyear, they were a little busy with NASCAR this weekend. This is one of their 2 busiest weekends of the year. As soon as I get those pictures, I'll send them around to the commissioners just so you can see where we're kind of going with this.
Looking at, okay.
All right.
Done. Okay, item C, rates and fees. The commission will present research and fees reports to compare with our consultant and different ones. Discussion and possible action. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Just before we get started, I sent over, just for the commissioner's use, I sent out the recent consult report, as well as a report that I did a couple of years ago when I was here, comparing the other airports in the general vicinity, Boulder, Bullhead, Havasu, as well as some down in the valley. But I also would like to read, I let our city attorney know that the commission was intending to present additional research, and Mr. Cooper wasn't able to be with us today, but he asked me to read this statement, if you don't mind. All right. Regarding agenda item 4C, rates and fees, I'm concerned, this is from Mr. Cooper, about the commission actively researching and preparing a rate and fee report. I don't know if that's exactly what you've done. That's my statement. This appears to be some sort of a counterpoint to the consultant report. It's my understanding that a number of the tenants, or a number of the commissioners are tenants, and they would be affected by a change in fees either positively or negatively. I would advise those commissioners to abstain from participating in the discussion and vote on that item. If those commissioners abstain and the remaining commission is less than a quorum, a new rule comes into play. And as that is at that point, the commissioners could still declare a conflict of interest, but they can vote on the issue to maintain a quorum on the item. Mr. Cooper goes on to say, I'd advise that this be avoided unless absolutely necessary. This becomes a personal issue for each of the commissioners. They could be opening themselves up to an investigation by the Arizona Attorney General's office. Penalties for violating conflict of interest statutes range from removal from office to potential felony criminal charges. And then he closes with, this is not a detailed analysis of the situation as I do not have all the information at hand. But if the assumptions above are accurate, then my recommendation is to table this item without discussion or action and forward the item to the City Council for action. So that's Mr. Cooper's legal advice on the issue. Now we can carry on.
Okay. A subcommittee was formed, and both Dave Amspoker and John Stutzman were on it. And Dave has some additional info or...
In that, we surveyed, I think, 15 different airports. I think everybody probably has a copy of this because we've distributed it before.
Mr. Chairman, may I interrupt?
Go ahead, Bill.
I hate to interrupt you, Dave. I think we need to act on what we were advised by the city attorney. It sounds to me like if we were to dismiss those of us who have hangars or tie downs or whatever and could not make a quorum, then we could declare special rule, come back into session, and then go ahead and participate in it. So I think we should find out if we exclude those, if we need to invoke that special rule before we ask our commissioners to talk about it when they might be in violation of that.
Okay, with what you were going to say, how many are affected by, but we don't know what we're going to propose yet. He hasn't proposed anything to know if we're affected.
But it seems like if we even discuss hangar rates, that we could be in violation. But I think if we take there's two things I believe we can do. We can do first what the attorney tells us and see if we would lose our quorum, and if so, then invoke the special rule and come back in.
So with that, the rates proposed by the study we're talking about, were hangar rates. Did he have increases on tie downs and shades also, or did he just suggest it?
Who? The
consultant.
Consultant has all of them.
The consultant had all of them.
Yeah.
What the study was that John and I did were strictly on T hangars. And so I think if we're going to go on with this discussion of what John and I found, then we should probably do like Bill's suggesting.
Yes.
And take a vote. How many of the commissioners have hangars that they're renting from the airport?
Well, they were going to increase prices on both shades and the ground and the hangars. So that's right. Everything. That's everything.
Mr. Chairman,
Joe, go ahead.
Just for clarity, why don't I read the recommendations that are in the report here? So it says, based on the results of all 15 surveyed airports, King Municipal Airport's current box and T hangar aircraft storage fees are slightly above the average rate for the surveyed airports. However, IGM's airport existing tie-down and shadeport rates are amongst the lowest rates as compared to those surveyed airports. All of these findings should be evaluated within the airport's overall budgetary process to evaluate how these rates and fees uniformly applied are used to meet the airport's self-sustainability compliance goal, which is an FAA grant assurance. To best maximize the potential for IGM, the following recommendations should be considered. 1, while IGM's current rates for box and T hangars are already slightly above average, IGM may consider its options based off of the comparable rates provided for it in the analysis. The decision should consider IGM's hangar vacancy factor, operating costs, and demand, keeping in mind that each airport is uniquely situated and must seek to remain self-sustainable. So they're not recommending any change on the hangars, box or T hangars. Number 2, adjust the Shadeport parking storage rate to $125 per month, period. Number 3, adjust the tie-down parking, that's the open tie-down parking storage rate to $75 per month, period. And then 4, as part of the airport's rate and fee setting process, IGM should consider implementing an annual rate and fee adjustment by either a cost of living, CPI index, or a fixed percentage increase. The IGM rates and fees should be elevated every 5 years by evaluated every 5 years by appraisal to confirm comparable rates remain current within changing economic conditions and demand. Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So we, in essence, have 3 different areas to vote on. If you're in a hangar, you're not going to, voting on a hangar would be self-increase, self-decrease. You would be voting. If you're in a shade, you're voting on a shade, increase, decrease. Or if you're parked out on the ramp, you would be in that category. So we have 3 categories that we would vote on. Everyone would have to pick if they're in a category and exclude themselves, and then we'll see if we have a quorum on the commission. Is the way I'm going to handle it. And if we go with any of them, then we're going to go into the special session that the city attorney detailed that way. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. We'll start with the boxes and the T hangers. We're going to start with the boxes and the T hangers, the largest, most expensive on it. Who has or is in a T hanger or a box T hanger or a major hanger in the back row?
Bill, John, and Tim.
So Bill, John, and Tim. So right there, that leaves Dave and myself left. So no quorum. Who's in a shade hanger? So Dave is in a shade hanger. No one else is in a shade hanger.
So you'll have a quorum on that.
So we'll have a quorum on that. Tie downs. Who is on a tie down out on the ramp?
Nobody.
No one. So we'll be able to vote on tie downs. So the only one it looks like that we'd be in a violation that we're going to have to go in and declare is on the boxes and T's, the big hangers. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah. Yes.
Does that seem like? So from that perspective, right now we're going to start with the tie downs, the low price, then the shades, then we'll change over. So Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you as subcommittee chair.
Okay. We did not investigate tie downs. We didn't anticipate needing to change those, but since we are among the lowest in the state, we might want to raise that. We talked about going up to $30 possibly for storage on the ramp. That's a $5 increase. Or if you look at it from a percentage, it's about a 20% increase. So I'm going to move that we raise the ramp fee to $30 a month as a motion, since we're doing this separately, and I'm not going to talk about anything else at this point.
So I have a motion. Do we have any discussion on his motion? Or a second?
I'll second the motion.
Bill seconds the motion. Now do we have discussion on the fee increase from $25 to $30 a month for ramp parking?
Okay, I have a question, and I don't know if Joe will know this. Do you have any idea how many GA ramp tie down folks we have.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Burrows, I do not without actually researching it, and it's not something that I research.
Right, and I didn't anticipate you would have. Why would you have? But it seems to me that we have a tremendous amount of available outside storage tie downs, and we are nowhere near capacity. So I think a slight increase like we're talking about is a good idea, opposed to going up to the nearly $60 rate that the suggested average is in that report we got. So that's why I would support a moderate increase as is before us.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Well, let's have a vote then on Dave's increase to $30 per month on the ramp fees. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sounds unanimous. Opposed? It is unanimous for a $30 price per month for a tie-down fee.
And that would be a recommendation to City Council.
Recommendation to City Council.
Yes.
Okay.
Next is the shade hangers. The proposal I'm reading for Dave, he's under the shades, so he's abstaining on this one. The shades currently are $75 a month, and it was told to increase that, and the proposal out of Dave's review is $80. And again, they are full, but we're lacking any additional ones. Until we get any, we won't know. But he's proposing to raise that again, up $5 a month to $80 a month. I'll take a second or a first or discussion, whichever way you want to go off this.
I'll make the motion to raise shade ports to $80 per month.
Bill had a recommendation.
I will second that.
John seconds it. Discussion. Anyone? Questions? Comments?
The one question I have is, at the end of this, are we going to talk about rates of increase or renewal rates or renewal periods?
That hadn't come up, so we may defer that till next month, but we could make a recommendation out of it. I mean, the City Council is going to look at it. Currently, it had been 3% no matter what, and it nothing to do with the actual raises that we've encountered or whatever. So it went up. These weren't. That was only for the hangars. So these were not part of that or whatever. So again, we should probably look at everything as a whole. They separated stuff out, and I think that would be a good idea as a whole to do exactly that.
Okay.
So I have a motion and a second on raising the shade rates to $80 a month. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? I don't have any opposed.
I abstain.
Abstain from Dave on that item. Now, what's left are the hangars, T hangars, old and new. From that, we're going to have to go into what our city attorney said, or defer this till next month, or Bill, what are your opinions? You think we should follow the city attorney?
No, I should. Thank you. No, I think we should follow his recommendation and go under a special rule and go ahead and handle the question. After all, we're not setting policy. We're not raising or lowering the rates. We're merely offering guidance to the city council.
Okay. So to do that, we're going to have to terminate this item, this session, and go under rules declaring, Joe, back me up on this. He wanted us to declare, after we close this item out, to declare our usage of the facilities or a user of it. Is that, read it again, would you?
I certainly will. And let me paraphrase first, and then I'll go back and read it. And I don't think that there's necessarily a need to, create a different environment, if you will. In other words, similar to when a body goes into executive session, not exactly like that. It's more about you declare a conflict of interest. It's determined, okay, due to those declarations and those that are not going to participate because of conflict, you no longer have a quorum. And then there could even be just one individual that undeclares, if you will. I mean, you're still declaring the conflict of interest, but the fact is that without a quorum, you can't conduct the business. And so that's when that rule that creates that provision where even though there's a conflict of interest, you can still move forward, even though there is a conflict, you're declaring it and you're moving forward so you can get the business done, if you will. But let me read Carl's, because I also think that we're talking about, there's a bigger issue here, which is the discussion of rates and fees for the airport. Because, you're talking about, well, it's the hangar, it's a shade, and it's a tie down, but it's all about rates and fees and how those rates and fees potentially affect those that have a conflict of interest. And I realize by sort of separating it out like you've done, that you've basically been able to segregate those conflicts. As Commissioner Burrows said, this is an advisory body. It's not a policy body, and therefore there's less risk regarding the conflict of interest. Let me read, and then you can carry on. So he states that he's concerned about the commission actively researching and preparing a rate and fee report. This appears to be some sort of counterpoint to the consultant report. It is my understanding that a number of the commissioners are tenants, and they would be affected by a change in rates, either positively or negatively. I would advise, as Mr. Cooper would advise, those commissioners to abstain from participating in the discussion and vote on that item. If those commissioners abstain and the remaining commission is less than a quorum, then a new rule comes into play. At that point, they would still declare their conflict of interest, but they can vote on the issue. So the point is all you need to do is say, okay, I can't abstain because we won't have a quorum, but I just declare and go ahead and vote. Vote on that issue. I would advise this be avoided unless absolutely necessary. This becomes a personal issue for each commissioner. They could be opening themselves up to an investigation by the Arizona Attorney General's office. Penalties for violating conflict of interest statutes range from removal from office to potential felony criminal charges. Then this is not a detailed analysis of the situation. I do not have all the information at hand, but if my assumptions above are accurate, then my recommendation is table the item without discussion or action and forward the item to the City Council for action. That was his statement.
Okay.
May I make a comment on it real quick, though? I think there's a fact missing here is that the subcommittee was formed well over a year ago, I believe. I don't have the exact date. And the data was gathered some time ago. It's not a counterpoint. This data was presented before there were consultants hired to do this work, if that matters. I'm just saying this was not done as a reaction. We were proactive on the matter.
Totally correct.
That's correct.
We'll make that note in the record that it was done beforehand.
We gathered this information, who was it, John, back in July?
Yeah, it was in middle of summer sometime.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess next we'll address the conflict of interest and have everyone that has a conflict of interest to declare it. So we'll note it on the record.
Yeah. As a hangar tenant, I do have a conflict of interest with the hangar rate.
And Bill Burrows also has a T hangar.
And John Stutzman has a T hangar, so I'd have a conflict of interest.
Okay. So we have 3 conflicts and 2 that don't on this. So let it be noted that they've made it clear that they do have a conflict with this. I think we should then allow discussion on what we're looking at, and we'll let Dave present from from previous report?
We found by canvassing Buckeye, Bullhead, Chandler, Deer Valley, Falcon Field, Flagstaff, Goodyear, Payson, Prescott, Safford, Sedona, St. John's, and Winslow, that Kingman is the second highest of all 15 airports on their T-hanger rates. Their T-hanger rates are currently for the B and C rows of hangars are 31 cents a square foot. The average is 20 cents a square foot, with some airports charging as little as 9 cents a square foot. Two airports, St. John's and Winslow, at 10 cents a square foot. Even Deer Valley, the busiest airport for general aviation in the state, is at 22 cents a square foot. The one airport that is higher than Kingman is Flagstaff, and they also provide electricity to their hangars, and in the wintertime, a lot of pilots want to keep their airplanes warm, so they're burning quite a bit more electricity. I would propose that we raise the rates on the T-hangers, or excuse me, lower the rates on the T-hangers to 20 cents or 21 cents a square foot if we want to stay slightly above average. At 21 cents a square foot, we would be the same as Chandler. And that's for the B and C hangars. The D hangars, commonly referred to as the bracket hangars, we can discuss at a different time because I don't think there will be a conflict on that.
Well, we'll just include them all. Go ahead and let's make the proposal and keep it all in one shot.
Okay, well, we were thinking 17 cents a square foot for the bracket hangars, which are in less desirable shape.
Okay. I have a question for you, if anything else on this. Some of your gathering of information was based upon airports that show a similar economic data, size-wise, location of the city outside a major metropolitan area, whereas most of the report that was done by the experts were all in major metropolitan areas. I mean, the vast majority. Well, and so this shows a little broader range going through the state, correct?
The presentation made by the research group showed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 airports, and I can't read the mice type that are on here because it's pretty. I'd need a magnifying glass, but some of them are outside the area. I think Lake Havasu was mentioned, and some others.
But the vast majority, the majority were inside the.
I think some, they had quite a few that were from the Phoenix area.
Right. Major metropolitan.
We had Ryan Field on here, I believe. Well, no, we didn't. We had Falcon Field, Deer Valley, Chandler, Buckeye, and Goodyear. All of those are in the Phoenix area.
Right.
We had Sedona, which is a fairly affluent community. Flagstaff's affluent. Even Prescott is more affluent than Kingman.
Right.
Okay. So we
So
tried to
that's-
get a cross-section of the state.
That's the basis that you're looking at.
I have a question for Dave.
Sure.
Are any of the airports you surveyed subsidized by their city or county?
That was not a question that was brought up. I believe some of them are, but I could not tell you which ones.
The vast majority. We're one of the few where our land sales and that provide the funding. There aren't that many totally self-sufficient airports or whatever. I mean, Joe, you could probably lend a little credence to that.
Well, you are accurate. In smaller communities, it's much more common, Mr. Chairman, for the airport not to be fully self-sufficient and have to draw from the general fund. However, as I look over these, I can tell you that Kingman, I'm looking at the ones from the report that the consultant did. Kingman, of course, is self-sufficient. Prescott is self-sufficient. Flagstaff is self-sufficient. Sedona. Cottonwood Airport is probably not. Lake Havasu is. Marana, I would say is, although I don't know that 100%, but they have some pretty high revenue streams there. Gila Bend, probably not. Phoenix Goodyear is. Glendale Municipal is not, but they're getting pretty close. There's probably about a 25% draw on the general fund for the airport's operating revenues. Phoenix Deer Valley is self-sufficient. Page, my guess would be it is, but I can't say that. Chandler, I'm pretty sure is. And then Falcon Field definitely is. Casa Grande probably is not. So of the list, that's what I know just from my knowledge of the industry.
Was Buckeye on your list, Joe?
It was not on that. It didn't appear that that was in the report, but I can tell you that Buckeye is not self-sufficient, and it does draw on the general fund. Just based on what I know as have been a neighboring airport to Goodyear when I was there.
Yep.
Right.
So are there any other questions or comments that you want to have? I mean, basically, this is a recommendation, again, going to the city council. But trying to put it in the way I look at it, where Kingman sits in the big picture statewide. We are very lucky on revenue streams that way. This is to put it to try and grow the aviation side, the GA aviation side. Our aim is to grow that. I mean, when you're in the valley, those airports have a lot of airplanes.
And one more question for Dave, and you may have said this, I may have missed it. In your research, did you come up with an average per square foot?
Of the hangars,
Yes.
we came up with an average price per square foot. Yes. I did not discover any airports that had the exact same square footage in their hangars. Some were close. Some were, maybe 20 feet difference, and 20 square feet in a hangar is not much. But we were interested in, and the reason we were going for the price per square foot is because that seemed to be the most fair way to determine it.
Yeah.
Right. So what was that average?
That average was 20 cents a square foot.
Okay, that's what I thought I heard. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, when there's an opportunity. A couple of things I would say is that one of the things we should be looking at is occupancies, in my opinion, supply and demand. We don't have significant numbers of vacant hangars, and they typically, when they do turn over, they're snapped up. I would say that if our pricing was that far out of line, we wouldn't have that. That certainly was the case at Glendale. When the private owner had a lot of hangars that were high priced, they sat empty while the rest of the valley airports had wait lists. I would also say that the report that the consultant done found an average T hangar rate of the airports that they surveyed at 26 cents. And I think it's unwise to be setting, and I realize your average may be different, but it's what I mean is the research that was done by the commission average may be different than this 26 cents here, but I think that it's unwise to. I think it's unwise to reduce the hanger rates at all, in my opinion. And but I think it's more unwise to go below what they found as the average in the community. So I make those statements. The thing I would also mention about the square footage and the size of the hangars is, you're right. You go to 10 different airports and they're going to have 10 different sizes of the hangars by some degree or another. And I think in many cases, a larger T hangar actually has some additional value, adds value to the occupant or the renter because there's more space, especially in this era where you now can, under new regulatory requirements, store non-aeronautical items in there as long as they don't interfere with the operation of the aircraft or safety. So I would make that statement. And then finally, I would just say that, you mentioned some of the lower airports, and in fact, I managed an airport for many years, Phoenix Goodyear Airport, that had the lowest T hangar rates pretty much in the area, and they were well below what we considered the market to be. Yet they were being raised by Consumer Price Index on an annual basis when the CPI was up. They're still in the industry's opinion, well below the market value. And so it's just one of those things, as I say, I'm sorry for interjecting my opinion, but I'm just sharing with you some of my observations that I've experienced from the industry. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for your indulgence.
Sure, thank you, Joe. Yes, Dave.
Joe, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate your insight. Way too many of the airports that they mentioned in their report were in more affluent communities, and I agree we don't have that many vacant hangars.
But we're not 100%.
But we're not at 100%. But the bottom line still is, I think we need to provide a service. We're not here to necessarily turn a profit. We're here to provide a service and maintain the airport being self-sufficient so that it does not need revenue from the city. And by doing so, I think in Phoenix, if you're dissatisfied with having your plane at Glendale, you can go over to Goodyear and get a hangar. And that's maybe 7 miles difference? Here, if you want a hangar someplace other than Kingman, you got to go to Bullhead or Lake Havasu. So it's a little different in the rural area, and I think there's more affluence and there's more revenue, and the average income in Phoenix is in the Phoenix area is higher than it is in Kingman.
Yeah, CPI. Yeah.
I appreciate any reduction that we can give our tenants, and I'm not going to benefit from this at all. So if you think 26 cents a square foot is what they came up with, do we want to be in the average with Phoenix airports, or do we want to be in the average with rural airports?
Well, Dave, I think if we have a better chance of getting the rates lower to 26 cents versus 21, then I would say we go with 26.
I have no problem with that. And if you think and 26, do you want to go with 26 for the D hangars as well, which are on asphalt that's breaking up and or do you want to keep them separate?
What do they pay currently? 250?
They're paying 276 currently, I believe, which seems awfully high for those.
The report says 270 a square foot for those, where the regular T hangers are 33 cents a foot.
27, that's correct.
27 cents a square foot. Yeah. So that would only be lowering them by 1 cent.
Oh yeah, one.
A square foot.
And there needs to be a difference between the B and C hangers and the D hangers, definitely. So, I agree with John about, we got to stay in reality. And I think 26 would be a very great place to be. And I think the D hangers should be somewhere in the vicinity of 24 cents. Or maybe even 23 cents.
Mr. Chairman, just for a point of clarification that was made earlier, right now we have a total of 2 vacancies in all the hangars. So I just wanted to make that clear.
So your rates now, Dave, are 24 cents for the D hangers and 26 cents or 23 cents for
Would you be okay with 23 cents, Bill, for the D hangers?
Absolutely. Whatever, whatever the traffic will bear.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion that we establish rates for the D hangers at 23 cents a square foot, and at the B and C row hangers at 26 cents a square foot. That's my motion.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Bill seconds it. So any more discussion that anyone wants to have?
I brought this up. This has come up a couple of times, I think. The hangars in the A, B, and C group are all very nice modern hangars. And while they may be above rate, I don't think they're grossly above. The D hangars are another story. D hangars, the ones that I've been in, I've not been in all of them, but they need a lot. They need some help. That's why they're always the last chosen. There's a number of challenges to using those hangars. The doors, the electrical systems, and the floor have all been issues in those hangars. Right. And I'm not sure if within that rate, I mean, even, I hate to say this because it may not be the popular opinion here, the rate to me wasn't as big a concern as somebody doing something to fix those hangars up a little bit, because they're kind of the last resort for most people. So I don't know how this argument or this discussion affects the ability to maybe make some improvements on the D hangars. But to me, that's a bigger priority even than the rate, because there's a differential. Maybe it's not as big as some people want, but I think some people would appreciate them being in a little better condition.
Tim, this is Bill. I do agree with you that the D hangers do need attention and they need to be brought up. However, I disagree that they're the last choice. It's the B and C hangars that have the vacancies, I believe, and I believe the Ds are all full. Because people are looking for that bargain. They're looking for a little bit cheaper rate. And I think, like Dave says, that's what we need to provide our GA users.
Yeah, I think the vacancies bounce around a little bit here and there, but it's only 1 or 2 either way usually.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, right now the vacancy, we have 1 in D and 1 in either the B or C row. I think it might be the B row, but so it does,
bounce around. Yes. Yeah.
But yet we always need shade.
Yeah. So
they're constantly full and they have a waiting list.
So we have a motion and a second, and it was for 26 and 23 on the hanger sets. Is everyone, any more questions on that, or are we going to just, any more discussion? Okay, let's call them.
Second that.
Couldn't hear.
Pardon?
Who made the second?
Who made the second? Bill Burrows?
Bill Burrows.
Thank you.
And just so I'm clear, Mr. Chairman, we're not talking about the A hangars, we're talking about the B and C and the D hangars, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, are the A hangars only the box hangars, or are there T hangars in A row?
There are no T hangars in A row.
Okay, so Joe, to make it clear, we're talking about all the T hangars except D.
Well, no, in your motion, or in my motion, I've got 23 cents for the D hangars.
Yeah.
And 26 for the B and C row of hangars.
Right, I meant the 26 rate was for everything but D. Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of these rates, say aye.
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 All opposed? No opposed.
Any abstentions, Mr. Chairman?
Extensions?
Abstention. Did anyone abstain?
No, nobody abstained, but they did declare up front the process conflicts.
Conflict of interest for Commissioners Burrows, Stutzman, and Gerlach. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Chairman, are we going to take up rate increases?
I think we should shift that one to next month because we have never talked about rate increases for parking for the big items. And I kind of like when we set the policy, it should be somewhat of a level. So I think that should go on next month's agenda to adjust the rates as a whole on increases. Yes.
Okay, and it will go to the council as one proposal?
Whichever way they want to take it. It doesn't matter to us. If they only want to address it once, then we'll bring them together and bring it as one. Because Joe, clarify this. When are they going to hear the rates? Is that in February or was that in January? Do you know?
I don't know that we have it calendared yet or established on any agenda at this time.
Okay, so then we'll shift that to next month, and then we can go all in one. Would probably be the easiest rather than piecemeal it because
I agree.
then you get confused.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 5, new business. Approval of the airport master plan, final draft. I take it everyone's had a chance to look at it. Tim, did you get a chance to look at the final draft that Joe showed you and then find it on?
Yeah, I did. I've located, I think I was having some internet speed issues or maybe at the other end, but I was able to finally get through all the drawings and all the documents. And yeah, I found what I was looking for on, I believe it was 5A. So anyway, yes, I've been able to review all of it.
Okay, I know you'd had concerns before. Does anyone else have concerns or discussion on this? Okay, let's take a vote for approval. Does someone have a comment?
Well, yeah, I was gonna just say that the master plan itself is good, but I'm not sure what our ability to be involved in the process moving forward after this is, because it is really the future, a big part of the future of the airport for a very long time. We have to make sure that that gets utilized wisely moving forward.
Oh, you're talking the commission recommending, I mean, the basis of the airport extension is the master plan. I mean, that's our drawing or our map heading into the future. And it's
I think where I'm headed with this is we're talking about the release of the land, but guess I'm thinking ahead to the next step is that we want to make sure we're safe, that this doesn't all get sold off and the money used, because there really isn't any more. And then, so my questions, I guess, related to that are, what security do we have in some of this land being able to provide ongoing revenue for the airport?
So, dealing with the master plan, it just says we're able to release the 1,800. And again, the only thing it states in there is compliance with the federal rules that have been in there since day one on our airport. That's going to be up to the commission, the city, airport management. Everybody's got responsibility that way. And that shouldn't have changed. But again, the city hasn't, I mean, the release isn't approved by the FAA yet. They may have conditions when it comes to the spring release that we don't know about or that. And right now, I don't have an answer for you that we can guarantee in perpetuity that this will support our airport. I don't, I mean, with the master plan, it just states what it should look like. And the release of the land in that is actually a different issue. I mean, it's involved, but we can't affect it with the master plan other than it's released. Does that make sense? Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Gerlach. So a couple of things that protect the airport are the deed restrictions from the original conveyance documents, which establishes that this is going to be an airport, and then the FAA land release. The requirement is that land that is released is to the proceeds of it are to benefit the airport. That's been it is, and there's no reason to think that any of that policy shall change. And so, in fact, I would even state that I think we've gotten smarter with regards to land releases that have been performed over the years, and now realize that we need to make sure there's some additional things that we need to do, such as ensuring O&M, an O&M stream, an operations and maintenance stream of revenue to support the airport. So I know I'm getting a little bit in the weeds. I think we're all getting a little bit in the weeds here. This land release is one small, or I won't say it's small, this is one component of the airport master plan. That the master plan has identified a significant amount of aeronautical land that's going to remain with the airport and provide expansion of the airport for many years to come. The release is just part of the ongoing revenue generation, if you will, or development funding for the airport. So, I mean, I understand Commissioner Gerlach's concern, but I don't think what he's seeking to ensure is something that has anything to do, much to do with the master plan. Right. The master plan is establishing a plan. Policy is on a whole nother side with regards to how that's developed, and you know, essentially the entire development of the airport that's identified in the master plan is demand related and subject to change as the needs of the airport might change.
That answer it, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this will be an ongoing discussion. Correct. About the land release side of it beyond this.
Yes,
discussion.
I agree. It will be an ongoing discussion.
So I'd like to make a motion that we support the master plan final draft.
Second.
Bill, Dave, first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? We all support that for our city. Item B, 5B, disposition of airports FAR 139 operating certificate. Joe, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. So the airport has, the airport had and has to a degree a Part 139 operating certificate, which allows the airport to be used for and served by air carrier airports, or air carrier airlines, excuse me. scheduled air service, if you will, of over 30 seats. And we haven't had that for a number of years. And the reason that is because they made changes in the Essential Air Service, the AES program, several years ago, that eliminated, I think it was 8 or 10 airports that were at the lower end of the employment cycle. In other words, the EAS, Essential Air Service, actually subsidizes federal subsidies for air service at smaller airports. We were last as far as the number of employments. I can't remember exactly, but I'm wanting to say it was like 9 people a week we were putting on airplanes. And so there were a number of airports, you know, quite a bit ahead of us that still were eliminated from the Essential Air Service program. There's also smaller community airports can seek and in some cases receive community grants where you'll be able to get some grant funding to an airport to help you subsidize scheduled air service. This has been done in a number of airports around the state and around the country. Typically what happens is, and that requires the sponsoring airport to, in other words, they don't pay for all of the subsidy. It usually requires that there's some amount of money, and quite a bit usually, that the community has to also put into their side of that grant to help support that, supplement that air service. Those grants typically, when the money's gone, when the grant money's gone, the airlines are not far behind leaving. I'd also propose that, you know, we're 1 hour away from Laughlin Bullhead City, which does have a Part 139 certificate, and while they don't have scheduled air service currently, they have had it in the past, they have large charter operations, well in excess of 30-seat aircraft. With regularity, and of course that's because of the casinos, I should say, across the river. So they're, I think, in a better position to reattract scheduled air service. You know, I'll also state that with the development of the I-11 corridor between here and Las Vegas, it makes the trip to McCarran, which is, you know, certainly a full-service large hub air carrier airport, that much easier to get to. You know, you're about 1 hour and 30 minutes from door to door to get to McCarran. So I say all of that to say that not only the airport, but also the airline environment right now, we're not in a leading position to reattract air carrier service. Okay, having said that, I'll state that when we took over the airport from the Kingman Airport Authority, they had a Part 139 operating certificate. The FAA said to us, please, what you need to do is change all the names, of course, make any changes you want to make to your airport certification manual, turn that in, and then they would reissue us the operating certificate. Well, you know, they never fully took it away, if you will. I made the changes to the airport certification manual before I left, but I don't think they were ever submitted to the FAA. In the meantime, the FAA, in this intervening period, the FAA has sent us a letter basically putting our 139 operating certificate in an inactive status. Now, what that means, and they did this, it wasn't, mean or because we did anything wrong. It was the fact that we didn't have scheduled air service. What that allows the FAA to do is reduce their amount of regulation and oversight. They don't have to come and do the annual inspections or make periodic inspections of the airport. So it relieves them of some of their responsibility, which helps them with their limited resources. What it doesn't do to the airport is allow you to relax your requirements. We are supposed to be operating this airport as is depicted in the airport certification manual, the airport emergency plan, and the airport security plan. We're supposed to be operating. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to actually have ARF service except for when an airliner comes in, but you have to maintain the readiness. In other words, that means you have to maintain the equipment, you have to maintain the training of your ARF personnel, that's at airport rescue and firefighting. You have to maintain your security standards, although you don't have to have security screening by the TSA except for when you have airline service. So all of these things we're supposed to be doing. As I mentioned, ARF equipment and training. Fuel inspections. We're supposed to be inspecting the fueling equipment here on the airfield once a quarter. We're also supposed to be training all of the fuel dispensing personnel. Another of our requirements is training employees that actually operate on the airfield, both pedestrians and vehicles. We have a requirement for security to maintain a safe and secure airport and not allow unauthorized access to the airport. We have a requirement that we're supposed to do inspections a couple of times a day, usually in dark and light, to inspect, the conditions out there, as well as doing perimeter security checks. We have a responsibility to ensure compliance of all of our tenants and airport businesses and enforcement requirements for those who fail to comply. We have some significant record-keeping requirements. Usually when there's a Part 139 inspection that are done typically annually at an active airport, that just the examination of the records alone can take numerous hours of the inspection process. We have typically when you're an air carrier or airport, you get more grant funding through what's called entitlements, but that's based on emplanements. And so we haven't had any emplanements for the last several years, so our entitlements are the same as any other GE airport around the state, which is $150,000 a year, basic entitlement level. We have, all of these things, I think our staffing level is not at where it should be, and we're not covering as many hours or days as we could be. So when you look at all of these things, there are costs associated with each of those. ARF, not to mention, right now our ARF equipment has a significant requirement for repair. We're still meeting the ARF requirement because we have supplemental support from either the Kingman Fire Department or NACFED. But the point is that the annual training for the ARF employees is several $1,000s a year because they have to go somewhere else for a live burn training. All of these things have a cost associated with them. Now, what I'm going to say is, we cease maintaining our operating certificate. That doesn't necessarily mean that all of a sudden our expenses are going to drop through the floor. That's not it. What I'm basically saying is our expenses should be quite a bit higher, in my opinion. And we need to consider what our compliance responsibilities are. It is my recommendation that the city of Kingman and the Kingman Municipal Airport surrender our Part 139 certificate to the FAA. They have assured me that if we, do attract airline service, just like in the past, we can get our certificate back. That's not a problem. We're essentially kind of surrendering it from a position of strength, if you will. So when we, usually it usually takes anywhere between 3 and 9 months to get your certificate back. And that's usually, you're in discussions with an airline, for a long time. They don't call you and the next day they're flying in. Usually it's a several months, or in some cases a year or more deal. So the point is that we can always get it back. And my concern is that if we're not following all of our requirements, that we place ourselves at some risk. What I mean is, by keeping the certificate and not doing everything, and I'm not making the statement that we're not doing everything that we're supposed to do. I'm making the statement that there's an awful lot of things that are required, and there's a risk. And so I've had discussion with city management about this. They're in favor of surrender. I've had discussions with the FAA and with ADOT. And one of the things that I needed to make sure of is we've received some grants over the years. As an example, we bought the ARF equipment with a grant. We built this facility, which is partially an ARF station, with a grant. And so I needed to make sure from them that there were not any grant requirements that if we surrendered our certificate, we might have to pay back. And all of those grants are older and wouldn't require us to fall into that position. I'm getting that final confirmation, but I've got a pretty solid okey doke on it. So before we make the final decision with the city council, we'll make sure that that's the case. But I'm very, very confident that I know the age of both grants is such that there shouldn't be any problem. And those are the only two that are really significant. The rest of the grants that we've got for airfield maintenance and improvements, are, typical of any airport and not been specific to our Part 139 operating certificate. So, forgive my long-winded discussion, but I just believe that this is the right thing to do for this airport at this time, and it certainly helps us mitigate any risk, as well as I think potentially does restore some or reclaim some funding to the budget that may be used for other purposes right now. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, it is my recommendation that you approve or recommend to the City Council that we surrender our Part 139 operating certificate back to the FAA. Happy to answer any questions.
I have two questions, actually. One, on the side, if for some reason there was a compliance issue with the current certificate, my question is, could that be damaging in trying to get it reinstated if it were taken away, if you will?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Gerlach, yes. I think, like I said earlier, we're kind of surrendering when we're in good graces. And yes, when they're evaluating us, it would be if they were evaluating us in the future, excuse me, they'd look back for any compliance issues or failures. So the short answer is yes. I think we're better off surrendering it now than if we potentially could get in some kind of trouble, if you will.
Okay. The second question is there any concern about not having the Part 139 any kind of runway funding? Because in the past there was concern expressed about potentially a desire to narrow our runway or runway 321. Things like that have been talked about as concerns, but just curious if that has any impact on that at all.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Gerlach, that is more of a function of our airport reference code and our master plan and the users of the airport. As an example, I think we clearly make the case that because we have maintenance, repair, and overhaul facilities for large aircraft, that we are in need of that higher level. I know exactly what you're meaning, that if you are built beyond what you need to serve the airports or the aircraft that that the FAA will come to you and say, you don't really need all this. I don't think that. I don't think that's our situation. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the Part 139 certificates, because it's likely that aircraft serving this station, if you will, for air carrier service would probably be smaller than the aircraft that are regularly using the airport as part of the maintenance, repair, and overhaul facility. It's more of a planning and master planning issue. We've established that that we are developing two aircraft. Our airport reference code will be ultimately, it's currently a C. So C is a design group, it's the size of the aircraft, and that's smaller airliners and twins. So it's like 737s, if you will, because it's a group 3 aircraft. The approach speed will be 3, which is pretty common for the larger aircraft. And then your visibility factor is, I think 3/4 of a mile visibility. So that's what's being proposed in the master plan. And so, no, the short answer, if you ever think you can get a short answer out of me, I apologize, is that just by virtue of surrendering the certificate is not necessarily a factor in any reduction in airport capacity.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions for Joe? Anyone have any questions?
I'll go ahead and move that the commission support the what's the word? Giving up of our Part 139 operating certificate. Surrender. There you go.
Surrendering from a position of strength.
Yeah.
There you go.
Bill, do you want to add that's if we get final approval that we won't owe anything for, as Joe has said, he's pretty sure we're going to get the hokey dokey?
Let me, I will amend my motion that we support it at the conclusion of Joe's review of the current FAA grants and that there's no negative association with it.
I'll second that motion.
So I've got a motion and a second for the surrender of 139 with the caveat that Joe verifies that we do not owe any money associated with the grants. Let's call for a vote. Yeas?
Aye.
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 Nays? Unanimous. The ayes or yeas have it. Next item 5C, commission meeting date and time. Due to everything being rescheduled, we've got a conflict down at the city with another commission. And Joe, I'll let you handle this because you've been in touch more with the city down there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. So here's the deal. As you know, there's been this conflict at times with another commission that meets on the second Monday at like 15:30 as opposed to 1500. And really where it rose to light was the ability to do these Zoom meetings and the capacity. But so here's the bottom line. I got two things I want to share. We could, number one, we don't have a conflict in November or December. The next time the conflicting committee meets is in January. Okay, they've suspended. And I don't know if they meet quarterly or every other month or what it is, but right now we don't have a conflict for either of the next 2 months. Excuse me, we're already in November. So we don't have a conflict in December. So we wouldn't need to make any changes until potentially in January. So that's the one thing. It's if we moved from the second Monday at 1500 to the third Monday at 1500, there would not be a conflict. There's no other commissions that are in conflict. Hold on. I'm getting additional information.
Didn't quite make it.
I think there is a conflict. When I looked it over, the second.
So I've been informed that we do have a conflict. I've seen now 2 different things. Next month is the point. What I saw down at City Hall was the CART was not meeting until January. But so here's where we're at. If we move to the third Monday as opposed to the second Monday, it eliminates these conflicts. And so I propose, or I don't propose, but I'd say that's an option for us. We can also keep it on the same second Monday and move the meeting time. I know that's been challenging in the past when we've met earlier in the day for some of the commissioners. I get that. So I throw that out there. I also will throw out there, does this committee need to meet? There are several commissions within the city that meet on a quarterly or an every other month basis. So, you may want to consider what the frequency of the meetings are as well. But that's entirely up to you. So I just throw that out there and state, it is your pleasure, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, what you may want to do regarding the conflict. There ends my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Joe, on your list of commission meetings, I don't believe there's any commission that meets on the second or fourth Tuesday of the month. Is there? And could we possibly look at a Tuesday? I know the city council meets on the first and the third Tuesday, but I don't think there's any activity on the second or fourth. And if we're going to continue to have to Zoom for a while, maybe one of those 2 days would be good. The second or fourth Tuesday of the month.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Anspoker, yeah, I haven't fully researched that, but I certainly can.
Well, Janie sent out a list last month of the meetings, and I didn't see any meetings on the second or fourth Tuesday of the month. So if she still has that available.
Well, Dave, are you having an issue with it being Mondays?
No, no, I'm just I'm just saying that we've had a conflict in the past, and when I looked over the schedule of various meeting dates, it wasn't on, there was nothing going on the Tuesdays. Now, I'm assuming that was complete, but, and Joe looks like he's got a book that he's looking through.
Calendar.
Calendar.
I'm still in it. I was just looking at
Plus, Joe, you're normally up here Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Is that correct?
Yeah, but don't certainly base it on because it's not a problem for me to come up on Mondays. I make adjustments, and I'm not going to be here for an extended period of time. So,
okay.
You know, don't let that be a factor for you. And if we're Zooming, to be quite honest with you, I'm not so sure I couldn't do this from the friendly confines of my home. Should that be necessary?
Yes.
I mean, I work remotely as it is when I'm not here, just keeping everything going.
Anyone else? Comments, dates, times?
Well, Mondays at 3 work well for me, and I would like to not Zoom as soon as possible.
Yeah.
The other thing is the second Tuesday I believe we have CAMA. I have a CAMA meeting, like the second Tuesday in the afternoon. I have Kingman Manufacturing here, so that one would conflict with me. But
now, Mr. Chairman and the members of the commission, the only thing I would mention as I'm looking at the calendar is that, you know, potentially you run into issues with holidays that fall on Mondays. I'm looking ahead to January, and I see that on the 18th is Dr. Martin Luther King Day. I'm just saying that, but we're going to have that no matter what with Mondays, depending on how they shake. So,
yeah.
I think that may be the reason that the city council meets on Tuesdays. It looks like we may have lost Travis, but we could ask him if he's still, if our liaison's still here.
I don't see him on the list. Might have had a conflict.
Tim, anything from you, conflict-wise?
Not really. They're all as convenient as the next.
or inconvenient, as the case is. Yeah.
John, any conflict out of you?
No, with my schedule, it really doesn't matter what day we pick.
Okay. The third Monday sounds good to me, and and again, January comes a new crew. You can change it if again this isn't. It isn't cast in stone. I mean, let's face facts. So,
in January we won't have a meeting if it's on the third Monday.
We'll move the meeting.
Okay.
or carry on. Okay, so the next meeting will be 21 December at 1500 local time.
Yes.
If in fact, I mean, and I don't know that this necessarily requires action, but that's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, we might as well vote on it. Let's take a vote for the third Monday, 1500 hours for the Zoom meeting. All in favor? Aye.
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 For the record, I will have made that motion.
Bill has made the motion.
I'll second it.
Dave seconded. Everyone's complete. No.
And just, Mr. Chairman, also with regards to Zoom and, you know, the council has begun some hybrid meetings where they're meeting partially, you know, the group is meeting at least partially together. Anyway, I'm stammering here, but what I'll try to do is get a feel from the city of how they feel about both us going to a hybrid and or how long they feel. But I think a lot of it's going to be a factor of, you know, what goes on with regards to the virus over the next little while. It's not looking
Sure.
Looks like maybe
Yeah,
only up there for a little bit. So
yeah, that would be nice or whatever, because I know several of you being able to, Tim, just being able to zoom it in, where me walk across the street's a big, a little difference or something. So yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think as long as they're allowing hybrid, if we wanted to maybe have some small group somewhere, as well as make that Zoom offer to everybody else, might be plausible. I'll report what I find out. And any discussion, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, of changing the frequency? You still want to stay with monthly?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Item 6, announcements by members for next
Before
month.
we begin, Mr. Chairman, I do want to explain something that, as you and I discussed, it was my attempt one of the items in this announcement is request for agenda items for future meetings. And you and I had talked, and I said I would break that out as a separate item, just related to agenda items. The concern I got from the city is that this is how all the commission agendas are, including city council, and they'd like to keep it that way, and try to keep them to the degree possible as consistent. I mean, new business items are going to be new business items, old business items are going to be old business items, but the other items they'd like to keep consistent. So I just wanted to explain why I didn't break that out as you and I had discussed. But make it clear to everybody on the commission, this is the time to add any new agenda items that you might want to consider for future meetings. And I know one of them potentially could be the chair and vice chair. That was another recommendation, or we got some communication from one of the commissioners saying, hey, we need to determine who the chair and vice chair are. And I think clearly that's needs to be a future agenda item.
Yes, I think I'll lead a little bit, and then Bill will discuss it too, and probably Dave, I know for sure, discuss this. I'm not going to be running for the next term. So my general opinion would be it should be appropriate in January, when you have new members, to vote for your chair, vice chair, and the members, rather than existing people set who's who before that. And that's just my opinion, and open it for discussion. Bill, you may have something. That's the way I look at it, that the new people should be able to pick their chair. And
Well, that's fine. If we can discuss it, let's go ahead and discuss it. But I believed that it needed to be an agenda item in order for this commission to discuss. I don't disagree with you. I just want to be able to discuss how we're going to handle it.
so the question is the vote going to be then scheduled for January? I mean, when we put it on for next month, do we want to set the actual timing of the election?
We'll discuss that when it's on the agenda.
Yeah, I think what Bill's trying to say is we shouldn't be discussing it now because it's not on the agenda.
Okay.
Exactly.
So agenda.
So let's put that on the agenda for next meeting.
I think Joe had something to say.
Well, no, just that we shouldn't be discussing
Right.
because it's under the announcement section. And we would actually not have it at the next meeting. We could potentially have it at the January. We would put that on the January. Isn't that correct? Or do we want to discuss it at the next?
Yes, I would like it on the agenda to discuss next meeting.
Thank you very kindly, Commissioner Burrows.
Anyone else for items for next month?
Or any other announcements, or are we just on agenda?
This is announcements, agendas, both or whatever. But is there any agenda items? I know we talked, one thing that I haven't seen that, and I'll get myself in trouble. No, go ahead, Tim. Announcements.
Okay, announcement just real quick. I was contacted by the commemorative Air Force Mesa Wing talking about looking at bringing their C-47 to Kingman Airport to do some rides. I don't know how good of a business environment we're in right now for them to do that, but at least we're on the radar now at Kingman, and there's more discussion coming on that. I'd advised them about the closed runway, which they were not aware of, which is now open, and we may be hearing more about that. So, but it's good we're on the radar and hearing from other people to do activities. That's all I've got.
And I guess I have one announcement. As you probably surmised, Carl Hayes, it wasn't at the meeting, but he resigned as the chair of the committee. So being the vice chair, that's why I was running the meeting. But I'd like to thank Carl for all his service of guiding us through a rough patch prior to this. And I just wanted to let that be known that he did try he tried really hard, and we're all appreciative of it.
I would agree. He put in many more hours than probably the rest of us put together. So.
Okay, with that, any other announcements? Okay, well, item 7, adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Motion.
I'll second it.
Bill second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The ayes have it. We're adjourned.
All right. Great to be back with you guys. See you all soon.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
Joe.
Thank you.
Good to
Take
see
care,
you.
everybody.